So just to recap, right? So in the last class, we did discuss like cloud computing concepts. Then we moved on to the data warehousing. And in the data warehousing, we learned like the components like source systems, ETL, OLAP, ODS, data marts, and even we discussed about the different kind of schemas. So when you are looking at the kind of a Informatica Power Center tool, right? So we need to understand where exactly it falls in the that category, whatever we discussed as part of the data warehousing. So as part of the data warehousing, right? Basically, it comes as part of the ETL. So what is a TTL? So ETL is kind of a solution which will try to extract the data and transform the data and load the data into your data warehouses, right? Not only that thing, even ETL tools are used to integrate the data. What do you mean by integrate the data? So from different kind of source systems, when you are trying to bring the data in one common location, right? So basically, you are going to call it as a data integration. And Informatica Power Center is one of the powerful tool in the market, which is integrating like all different varieties of source systems. Doesn't matter like whatever the source system you're having, it's going to support each and every source systems. And that is what we discussed maybe 2 days back. And what exactly we discussed in the last class is a kind of a data warehousing concepts in detail and Informatica architecture. So coming to the architecture, right? Like any tool, right? First thing we have to understand the architecture. So if I, even if I'm when I'm saying a data warehouse, right? Even the data warehouses will have its own architecture. But coming to the Informatica, the main the components as part of the Informatica architectures are kind of a service-oriented architecture related. So what does that mean? Whatever we talk in Informatica Power Center, right? Everything is architectured based on the SOA model. So what is SOA model? Service-oriented architecture model. So what is that service-oriented architecture? Every component every component as part of the Informatica tool. Okay, the way you communicate the sources, the way you communicate to the target, the way you communicate internally, the tool. Okay, everything is happening by using a services. So there's a reason we are going to call it as a service oriented architecture. But you might get in a question, of course, it's a now a kind of an outdated question in the interviews, like what is the difference between maybe before 8.x and now? Before 8.x, it's a service oriented architecture, but still, even though it's outdated question, but like still remember, okay, it's very very crucial right now. The Informatica Power Center is working on service oriented architecture, but before 8.x versions. Okay, 8.x means 8 version 8. Before version 8, it was on service oriented architecture. There's going to be a big change in terms of an architecture perspective now. So when you are talking about the services, right? What are the major services you're having is one is the core services, application services. Core service means always remember. So the services which are used to interact within the Informatica or core service means if a motor has to run or if an engine has to run, there should be some internal mechanism, right? Like with the bearings. Okay, if you take any motor, right, the bearings or the kind of a wiring or maybe the kind of watchers or maybe the kind of instruments whatever used as part of the motor is kind of core parts of that motor. But if you look at that the kind of an application services, right, these are the services which are helping a kind of what I can say, maybe I can say is kind of a heart of this, maybe you can call the power to your motor. So that is what a kind of an application services. So maybe we can discuss in detail, but like we discussed about these things in the last class. But today, see, most of the people miss that, and most of the people don't have a recording. That's the reason we are trying to record this thing. And okay, I'm just making sure before I say whether I am recording or not. Right, it's recording. So ultimately, what you need to understand is how Informatica Power Center is working. That is what the goal of this class, and that is what called an architecture as well. So when you look at the service oriented architecture, right? So it's kind of in a communication. When you go to Japan, okay, the way you communication is communicate is different. When you go to China, it's different. When you go to US, it's different. When you go to UK, it's different. Okay, ultimately, when you come to India, the communication is little different. So every approach, okay, or like every system will behave. It's based on like its own like inherited properties. Okay, but this system, Informatica Power System, is built based on the SOA architecture. Okay, means the kind of a communication between each and every component. Okay, maybe if you talk about the nations, you will see the people, right? The same way here, you will have a different components. Maybe one you can call as a source, other one you can call as a target, maybe something you can call about the repository, maybe you can call about like a kind of the processor or whatever it is. Ultimately, the communication between two components when it's happening by using a service. Okay, so normally always whoever requesting the service, right? So those are called service consumer. Consumer means someone is requesting it. Provider means who are facilitating it, means as a response when I request something, as a facilitator he is providing that back. So there are two major components I can say, or like entities. One is service consumer, another one is service provider. Ultimately, whether you call it as a service consumer or service provider, these are two different kind of softwares, I can say. Those things are installed on two different kind of entities. Okay, so every entity will have its own service consumer and its own service provider. Ultimately, who is going to manage all these things? There is a service manager for every tool. So now, if you compare with that old version, like where we used to have like a kind of a server and client architecture or client and server architecture, there, Powercenter server, earlier we used to have a server. Now it became kind of a service. Okay, the same service we are going to call it as an integration service. Earlier we used to call it as a Powercenter server. Now it turned out, or it's remolded himself as a integration service. Earlier we used to have a repository server. Okay, in contrast, you are calling the same one as a repository service. What is the difference? Earlier they are using a kind of a client server architecture. Now you are using a service oriented architecture. That's it. So naming perspective, they changed themselves, okay, from servers to services. But coming to the client application, they are perfectly same. Okay, but the kind of a framework whatever you're using, right? So those frameworks, okay, are like embedded with these new services, and this client is kind of remains same. Client means what? Whatever you are working, like wherever you are working, or like wherever a developer is working, that is called client tools, okay, or client applications. If you look at this picture, right? So the ones, like there are like four circles, okay, R, D, W, M. These are kind of a power center client tools. There is no change in these tools architecture perspective. The rest of everything got changed. Now think about this. For example, how it exactly this is working. The one on the left side and the one on the left corner in the bottom. So this is called client, Power Center client. And the above one is a source, okay? And the right hand side above one is a target. And there is in a kind of a bottom, okay? Or maybe you can call it as a platform as well. That is called repository, okay? So on top of this, you are going to have a domain, and everything is managed by administration console. Once again, I'm repeating, left side is a Power Center client where a developer will work. And the above thing, like on the left side, sources, that is what, like from where you are going to bring the data in. Okay. Once you bring the data, you have to load somewhere, right? On the right side, it is called a target, okay, where you are going to load the data. But who are going to perform all these things? Basically, the services are performing those things. How you will perform, I'll explain with an example. But so try to understand the services which are crucial to your server, or like maybe your Informatica Power Center, what I can say, Power Center processing capacity, right? Everything is coming out of this domain, like the integration service and report service. The bottom, whatever you are having, is just to manage the metadata. Okay, and how you are going to manage all these things by using the administration console. Maybe it's a different way of looking at the architecture. Now, let's take an example. Being a developer, okay, being a developer, even I told in the last class with a different example. Maybe better I will put a one more example instead of like repeating the same thing. Okay. For example, today I joined my company. Okay, I want to log in into my Informatica Power Center client. Try to understand how that access will be provided. Normally, what admin will do is, first of all, first you need to raise a request to Informatica admin. So maybe through HP Service Manager or like maybe some other tool, right? So once you raise a request, right, the incident will go to the Informatica admin. What will happens now? Informatica admin trying to log in into his administration console. Then he's going to check like what kind of things are possible or like okay to perform for your specific role. How he'll get to know based on your request. So what you'll request him, hey, I joined so and so date, okay, and I am working so and so application, and I need so and so access. Being a developer, what you will ask? You will ask, I need a developer access. What admin will do, first he will check whether this specific user is available in the organization directory or not. So what is that organization directory? It's a LDAP system, normally Microsoft Outlook, right? It's kind of a cloud based employee management tool where it will maintain all employee details in a LDAP databases. Okay, so in the LDAP database, right, like what's going to happen, whatever, whoever the employee, whoever requested, right, if he's available, he's going to sync that LDAP with his Powercenter. So obviously, whoever is available in LDAP, right, obviously he will have that visibility that, okay. So even for that user, even the admin can see that user. If he is able to see in that LDAP, automatically he's part of your Informatica Powercenter. Now, the next thing what admin is going to do, what kind of a role you have to get, okay, then he will allocate you a kind of a developer role. When he's allocating a developer role, then he has to allocate you a project also. Okay, so then he will allocate a project. That is how in the background your access will be provided. So even on that project, what kind of an access you supposed to have? Are you a developer or a lead developer? Developer will have his own access for his individual folder. Okay, even for example, if I am working a project called Firebolt, okay, let's take an example. Firebolt is my project name. For this Firebolt project, everyone will not have an access to this Firebolt. Normally what happens is, in some client areas, Informatica admin can create a Firebolt underscore Chaitanya or Firebolt underscore my employee ID, okay, ABCD, Firebolt underscore BCDE for other user. Only the lead developer coordinator will have to the main folder, that is Firebolt. You got this variance, right? What exactly I'm talking? Every individual developer will have his own individual folder, but the main project folder access will have the lead developer. Okay, always try to understand this kind of a real-time, maybe I can say real-time knowledge every person should have. Okay, even when you join an organization, don't ask, okay, simply if you don't get an access on the major folder, right, don't even expect that unless you are a lead developer. Okay, but you can ask, there is nothing wrong in that. At least you will have a read access, but don't worry. But on your individual folders, you must have read and write where you can build the mappings. Fine. You got the access, and your record, or like maybe I can say your details were updated in the Powercenter repository. Now, this is what like your first journey into your repository. That is what metadata, where it is located in the bottom. So now what admin will do? Okay, Chaitanya, your ID got created. So and so is the password, and ID use this is what your user ID to log in, and you have to install the Informatica Powercenter on your machine. Okay, you install your Powercenter, and then you will configure the domain. Okay, then you will move on. Just a sec, guys. Sorry. So now you got your email from the admin. Now you are trying to log into your Informatica Powercenter. Now think about this, how the flow happens. Now I'm trying to log in my Informatica Powercenter client. Okay. Then from where you supposed to get the access? How your username is like kind of validated? Once you log in, immediately when you click on submit or login, what will happen is the request will go to the repository service. And from the repository, it will verify, is this user Chaitanya is available in this repository or not? Because my admin already put my information in this table. So there will be a query written back to this table. If the result is yes, then only it will allow you to log in. And even the repository, what kind of a privilege you are having? Again, there is a one more query will be fired in the back of the system. So it will tell you, hey, for this Chaitanya, he is having a Firebolt underscore ABCD folder as a owner for this folder. And for the Firebolt folder, he's only kind of a reader. So with those credentials, you will enter into your Powercenter client. Okay, there are 4 different kind of tools in Powercenter client. One is a designer, the first one, sorry, the second one. The first one is a repository manager, and third one is a workflow manager, and fourth one is a workflow monitor. So why I separated these two things, workflow manager and workflow monitor? Because these two things are in a different system. Okay, and this D is in a separate client tool, R is in a separate client tool, but you need not to worry about this thing. All are integrated. Once you step into a Informatica tool, anywhere like you can click on anything, and no, you no need to re-log into the system. Okay, so that's how your entries happens in Powercenter client tools. Now, I created a mapping. What will happen? Normally, I'll create a mapping in a designer. Immediately, that mapping will go into the repository only. That metadata will be saved in the repository. When I execute the same thing, then the power is changing, or like the control is changing. You can see, right? Then the kind of an execution part, whenever the execution part comes up, right? These two things, execution and monitoring, for these things, first thing is going to be integration service. Okay, because the execution is coming from here, right? Obviously, the integration service has to get invoked because you have to execute something. Then whenever the execution comes up, then there is this chance of why will you execute the job? To get the data and to transform the data and to load the data. That's the reason whenever you are operating workflow manager, obviously the first control will go to the integration service, then it will go to the repository service, then it will get the metadata, and this metadata will go back to repository service, and from there it will go to the integration service. Once integration service gets the metadata means what? Source information, target information. Once it gets its metadata, then it will try to pull the data and perform the logic, then load the data. Maybe you can get a question. Then what is this M is doing? It's a monitor. Whatever it is processing, right, is back and forth. The data will be shifted between the monitor and the integration service. So ultimately, your job will be created, okay, or sorry, your job will be loaded with a sources and targets statistics. Any questions on this one? Very, very, very important, guys. Okay, I'm just taking a 10 minutes pause here. 10 seconds pause. Try to see if you have any questions. Just think each and every component. Okay, fine. Any questions? First of all, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fine. So now let's move on. Now, someone asked about the domains and nodes, right? So what are this kind of domains and nodes and services? Services we enough like I think like we elaborately discuss what are the services. Try to understand the domain. So what is a domain? For example, I'm working in a project, right? So when I'm working in a project, so maybe I'm working for an application. There is a banking application, but even there are some other applications in my project, or sorry, in my client place. Maybe in banking sector, okay, in banking sector, there are like hundreds of projects are running. But like all these hundreds of projects, I cannot create, okay, I cannot create all of them in one domain. The reason is the kind of a distribution of jobs at the same time supporting of the jobs for the admin is going to be very, very difficult. Okay, forget about the pricing, but like administration and kind of a maintenance and the kind of a load, whatever you are putting on a single domain, right? It's going to be very difficult. There's a reason based on the number of the jobs, based on the number of the execution. Okay, what we are going to do is out of the banking sector, okay, maybe for the finance side, how many projects are there? For example, there are 10 projects. For all these 10 projects, let's use so and so domain. Okay, and maybe the other projects which are belongs to like maybe APAC region, in the same banking APAC region, North America, or maybe European. So there are three different regions are there. So for each region, try to use like a one domain. So don't clash with the domains. Okay, so that's the reason we'll separate, like we'll buy three separate licenses. Fine, perfect. Now, what is a domain now? Domain is a kind of a installation for every kind of an application. Okay, when I'm saying one domain, just think it as in one installation. For example, now 6 resources are there. What I can do, I can install 6 domains. Okay, maybe you can think, if in an organization, if there are 100 employees, then are you going to build like 100 employees? Sorry, 100 domains? No. In organizations, I will build only one domain, but I will give the access to all 6 members. If it is if I'm working as a organization, right, what we will do, maybe next month it's going to happen. I am going to build only one domain. For this one domain, I will give the access to 6 members. So one person is a lead and one person is a tester, one person is a developer. Okay, so that's a different part. But for now, what we are going to is, we are going with a domain. Okay, the domain is a kind of a single installation for a given application, not for the user level. Now, next thing, each domain, okay, how the domain is formed. A domain is a area, but like ultimately the bottom in the domain is kind of a different missions. Why? Because to run anything, you need to have some kind of a computer or some kind of a processing power. Maybe I can call it as a node. When I'm saying node, it's a mission. In the real time, maybe it's a kind of an individual thing. You are saying like maybe my laptop, right? But if you go to the organization, your laptop capacity might not be sufficient. You need to have high processor oriented nodes or missions. And that too, if one node is going down, immediately what will happen? All your jobs will go down, right? So, or like whatever the jobs you created, whatever the jobs are under execution, right, everything will go down. That's the reason normally domain will be with the multi nodes. Even one node is down, another node will pick up the tasks. Okay, now is it clear? Now think about the uh, maybe he gave a different example. Maybe in my example, I gave like in a banking, North America is one region, European is another region, APAC is another region. For 3 regions, 3 different kind of domains. Okay, so a company can have, or a client can have multiple Powercenter installations. So but like okay, being a developer, what exactly you are bothered about? You're only worried about what domain I'm going to log in, what repositories I'm going to use, what nodes I'm going to connect. That is only thing you supposed to focus. It doesn't matter like what exactly the other projects are using and what other domains are using. But always remember this thing. A domain is a primary unit of administration, is a collection of nodes and services. This is a very, very crucial thing. What is that? The second statement, primary unit of administration. For example, if I'm working as an admin, right, where exactly I'm going to work? I'm going to work on my domain only. For example, if I'm having a 3 regions or 3 domains, right, my goal is to monitor all these 3. Okay, it's not like, okay, once I log in, I can monitor only that thing. No, you're supposed to log in into the east domain, west domain, north domain, whatever it is, whatever that categorization you are having, right, you have to monitor everything. But whatever you are going to write, you just take care of your own domain, not in the perspective of admin, or not in the perspective of maintenance of the domain, only in perspective of using of domain and developing your code. Now, node. Node means, I mean, think just a node is just like a server. Okay, so I told you, like maybe in the cloud computing we are talking about this thing. When I want to establish, or like when I want to start a company or a startup, right, I need a different kind of missions. Why? One mission I need for the database, and another mission I need to run my tool. Okay, that tool itself is a Informatica. But to run my Informatica tool, right, I definitely need a node. Okay, and what is a node again? A node is a server, or a node is a kind of what I can say, a kind of a mission. But a domain, you will consist of like a multiple nodes. Then how the domain is managing the multiple nodes? The reason is, domain will have the multiple nodes, but domain will not take care of that thing. What it will take in the domain, you're gonna have a service manager, because it's a service oriented architecture. Even the communication between one node to another node, one node to domain, or like one node to your integration service, everything is a kind of a service only. Ultimately, a domain will consist of a kind of a service manager concept. So each and every mission will have a one service manager. In that service manager, it will kind of operate like a kind of a bridge between each and every node. But there is one node which will behave like a gateway, kind of a leader node. Okay, because whenever you execute a job, right, what will happen is whatever the domain you are using, the request will go to the domain as a service. Immediately the gateway node will wake up and it will try to see is there any other node is available. Okay, normally this node will do the same thing, like, okay, so what is available, and it will try to allocate that task to that specific node. If it is not available, nothing is available, right, maybe it will try to put in the kind of a queue. Okay, sometimes you will see like your jobs are in a kind of a waiting, right? The reason is that, so if all the nodes are busy, like no node is available, obviously your job will fail. Okay, the reason is, there's a reason like admins will take care at any point of time your servers are not full. Okay, if your servers is completely occupied, right, you cannot run your job. Any questions on this one? If your gate, so ultimately your gateway node is unavailable, basically what will happen, domain cannot accept the service request. Okay, so ultimately your job will fail. Just remember only one thing, guys, to put in a very high level, right? A domain means is collection of a services and nodes. Node means it's a single server, or maybe it's a mission. Okay, a domain can consist of multiple nodes. Okay, and each machine will have a service manager. It is just like a kind of a gate pass. Okay, whatever the requests are coming in and coming out. Okay, even for all these nodes also there is a gateway again, gateway node. What is this gateway node will do? From every each and every node, right, it will try to observe and it will try to allocate the resources, or like it will try to allocate the tasks to the other nodes. Clear? Okay, maybe you can get in a question. See, my machine is having only one server and one processor and one hard disk. What about me? In your machines, it is just like a simple gateway node. That's it. You don't have like multiple nodes, right? So it's single node. So what is a service manager? Service manager basically it works like in a kind of a bridge, or sorry, it's kind of a gateway thing for every node. So basically for every service, whatever is coming in, right? So it is going to consider, or like maybe it's going to be take that request, okay, to take for every node to communicate with the another service or some other thing, right? Or like some other node. Basically, it has to have some mechanism, some kind of a software thing on top of it. That is what this service manager. Okay, so the service manager will work just like a gateway pass provider for each and every computer, and normally that will work in initiating the services and responding back to the services. Any questions, guys? Okay, there are two types of services. Okay, one is application services and other one is the core services. Core services means, I told you, right, the core services are just like, okay, if when I'm executing a job, the control going from your repository manager to integration service and integration service to your client tools, all these are kind of in a core services. Or maybe log file creation. Okay, pulling, I mean pushing the data into the log file. Okay, and everything like whatever the internal communication, right, everything is going to be part of core services. Coming to application services, here these are the kind of a key thing: integration and repository. Integration service, right, like it's kind of a heart to your Informatica Power Center. Whatever the request you are giving, right, basically it will try to take that request and try to communicate with the other services, just like a reporter service and client tools, and maybe you can consider as a core service also. But integration service is a kind of a key thing in entire Informatica Power Center. And next thing is reporter service. Reporter service, just think of a kind of a service to communicate with your metadata. Okay, very, very, very simple, guys. Integration service is to execute the things, and reporter service used to communicate with your metadata. Okay, there are two other services. Those are installed, but they're not configured to run. The reason is these are kind of a paid services. Now, these are the example of core services like configuration service, log service, service process control. All these are kind of core services. Okay, so maybe there are like some more things like a domain service, gateway service, authentication service. I told you, right? When you're trying to log in into your Informatica also, service has to run to go to that LDAP or to go to that admin and check whether the user is available or not. Admin services, everything is part of core. Okay, so different kind of services, they are split into three different kind of nodes. Okay, just try to observe. Always the gateway node will be having most of the services. The rest of the things are going to have kind of individual services. Any questions? Any questions on admin part? Team? I think we all discussed about the Informatica basic things, like how Informatica is happening and when it was found, or like what kind of operations we are doing. Okay, this slide is clearly defined, but like these concepts also we discussed, but like we'll discuss it again. Okay, the mapping. Now, if you look at that Informatica, right, there are like four different kind of tools in Informatica. The first one is designer. Okay, so maybe every day we are gonna play around with the same kind of a tool, but don't worry about that. But the first thing is designer. What you will do with the designer, basically you are gonna build your kind of a logic, okay, as part of the mapping or like a designer. So whatever the outcome of the designer, right, it's a mapping. Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So a mapping is a kind of a logical, or like it's not a logical, what I can say, whatever the component you're trying to use, okay, to bring the data from one place to another place. Okay. So that may includes your sources, that may includes your target, that may includes your transformation, anything which is going to help you to move the data from one place to another place by applying some business rules. That is called a mapping. If you look at that below example, this picture, right? What are the things? The first blue color one is a source, right? And the next one, SQ and FX. Okay, these two are transformations. The last one is a target. So ultimately, what I'm doing, I'm trying to bring in source, target, the logic, everything together. This is what ultimate my outcome of the Powercenter designer. Any questions, guys? I mean, among you, like anyone started development? Have you ever did any mapping or anything?
No.
Anyone entered into the Informatica? Trust me, it's one of the simplest tool, low code tool. Okay, so no need to worry about like these wordings or anything, because next 10 days, or sorry, next 12 to 13 days, completely you are gonna work on these things. So ultimately, I'm sure after 2 weeks, if I ask the same question, right, what is a mapping and what is the source, what is the transformation target, right, you feel like it's a silly question. Okay, but maybe now you might see a little confusing. Okay, so what are the transformations then? Transformations means it's kind of an informative object which is used to help you to apply your business rules. Okay, so what does that means? Whatever the logic your business is giving to you, to apply that business logic, you need to have an object. That object is transformation. Very, very important thing. Transformations are two types. One is active, another one is passive. What is active? For example, to a transformation. Okay, for example, to a transformation, I'm passing 100 records. As a result from the transformation is either 90 or maybe 120. For example, I'm passing n records to a transformation, but the outcome of the transformation is a kind of an n minus 1 or like a n minus x or n plus x. Then I'm going to call it as a transformation. To put it in a simple way, if your transformation is capable of changing the number of records, then it's going to be active. If the transformation is not changing the count of the records or number of the records after passing through the transformation, it's called passive. Okay, so what exactly I'm talking here? I'm talking about the number of the records, or normally what happens is a source. Okay, let's go to this example. Source qualifier. This is a source qualifier transformation, right? The next one is the expression transformation. Next one is the target. For example, in my source, I'm having 100 records. These 100 records are coming here, source qualifier. If this source qualifier is changing the number, the outcome to 90 or 80 or 70 or 0, then source qualifier is an active transformation. For example, from source qualifier, I'm getting again 100 to this next transformation. But this transformation is not changing anything. Whatever is coming, it's sending out. Then it's called a passive. Whatever there is a concept of links, or like there is a concept of the ports in a transformation. Normally, we will call as in a ports. Okay. Just a sec, guys. Sorry, guys. So ultimately, the one whichever coming from the next other transformation, right? For example, in my previous example, I am having in my previous example, right? I am having a source. From this transformation, okay, from this source, whatever is coming to SQ, this transformation, right? Everything is called input ports. If they are going out, then it's going to call as an output ports. Okay, normally the arrows, whichever is coming, right? There's an input ports. For example, in this example, right? Employee ID, employee name. Okay, these are like kind of an input ports. And at the same time, they are going out. So obviously, I'm going to call them as an output port. So it is input as well as output. Clear? So these are the different kind of transformations. The first one is kind of a source qualifier, expression, filter, sorter, aggregator, joiner, lookup, update strategy, router, transaction control. All these are different kind of transformations. Even you do have like a union, Java, midstream XML parser, XML generator. So there are so many transformations, guys, but this is what your day-to-day operations, okay, for next 10 to 12 days, because these are the things which you are going to practice. And the next thing is, okay, I built my mapping, okay, and I built the logic to bring the data from one place to another place. Now, the next thing is how you're going to configure that. Of course, you are bringing the data. Okay, you. Just a second. Sorry. Okay, I built my code. Okay, I built my logic. Okay, but now how I'm going to tell my integration service, okay, how I'm going to tell my integration service that where is my source, where is my target? Because my source and targets are somewhere else. They are not part of my Informatica mapping. I only got a kind of a structure. That's it. But the actual source are somewhere on the database or somewhere on some different kind of a file server. How I'm going to get them? For that, I need to have a some kind of a configuration part. That configuration normally I will do in a session task. Okay, like that, I do have a different kind of a task like command task, email task, decision task, timer task. But the session task is a kind of a task which is used to execute your mappings, right? So at the rest of the tasks also they're having their own preferences or like a kind of usages, but try to understand session task is a default task what every mapping has to be associated with. Okay, now any questions up to this part? In the real time, what will happen is once you build your code logic, right? Normally, you are not going to work every day. Maybe what you can do is like maybe during the testing or during the development, right? Maybe you can run your job. Okay. But even to run the job also, you need to have some kind of a mechanism. Maybe you configured it, that's okay. But you need to have some kind of a mechanism, okay, manually to kick off the flow or to manually to execute the job. For that, definitely you need a kind of a workflow. But okay, for execution, it's okay. But I need to automate this thing. It's not like, okay, first I will run the first job, then I will run the second job or third job. I will not go like that. If I run the workflow, all the dependent jobs and corresponding jobs, linked jobs, everything has to go in one shot. For that, I have to put them in a kind of a workflow. Okay, so workflow is used to execute your tasks. Okay, and their workflow is used to synchronize, or you can call it as like a systematically arrange those tasks in a to run in a particular fashion. Now, till now, whatever I was talking, metadata, logic, X transformations, sessions, okay, sources, targets, data types, mapping logic, workflow logic, everything is called metadata. Okay, all this thing will be stored in the repository. That is called metadata repository, or you can call this in repository. Maybe you can get in a question, where, what is my repository? It's a database only. It's nothing new. Okay, but normally it's not your source or it's not your target. It's a separate database. Okay, guys, this is a small quiz. So what is the ETL? Anyone can tell out of these 6 options?
Extract, transfer, and load.
Extract, transformation, and loaded data.
Right. What is a mapping?
Logically different.
Okay. What is a workflow?
Collection of order tasks.
Collection of
What is a metadata?
Define data and process.
Transformation.
an executed a set of actions, functions of comments.
Task.
Generator manipulates data.
Task. That is for the transformation.
Data. An executable set of actions, functions.
Okay, so that's all, guys. Basically, I mean, I didn't do much. Maybe the last class I just explained with the different examples. That's it. Okay, so I believe like we already discussed all these things in last class also. Not much. Only few concepts I discussed today, like a transformations and other concepts. But any questions for today, guys?
Hi, Chetan. Hello.
Yep.
What is different between the IDQ transformations and ISS power center transformation? Is all same or really different?
I didn't get you. Can you come again? Your voice a little low.
What is different IDQ transformation and power center ISS? Is same or different?
See, I'm not sure about the IDQ, but like coming to Power Center and IACS, right? The kind of a usage is different. Or sorry, the way you will see in the Power Center, the way you will see in the IACS is different. But bottom line is the kind of a core concept is same. Pictorially, they both are different. And there are like a few changes, like maybe in the union transformation. Okay, so there are a couple of changes, and a couple of transformations are not available in IACS. There's another one. Whatever is available in Power Center, right? Maybe all of those are not available in IACS. Power Center is a kind of a very big thing compared to IACS. And I'm sorry, I cannot comment on the IDQ, but Power Center is pretty big compared to IACS.
Yeah, thank you.
The major advantage, what you can see from IACS is not on the transformation side. The kind of tasks, okay, the kind of a replication task, synchronization task, for all these things, right? When you use that Informatica Power Center, you have to use a lot of logic. But in IACS, it's pretty much simple. Select the source, select the target, and the rest of the thing it will do. Anyway, we'll come to that part. So because as part of our curriculum, even we are discussing IACS, so don't worry about that. Any other questions? I know today, like we wasted almost like 30 minutes of time, but that's okay. At least I hope like this recording is done, and at the same time, like a few people got like a detailed explanation. We've only discussed about like small thing. That's okay. So tomorrow plan is, so maybe I'll try to work on tonight with that guy. Okay. So then we'll try to see who can you confirm once again? I'm sorry, I'm asking this question multiple times. Janakiram, you have that software, right? Or you don't? Okay,
Yeah,
or
Chaitanya.
just do one thing. Whoever need that installation, just put in the WhatsApp instead of asking this question. Make sense? Whoever wants it, just put it in the WhatsApp. That's it. We'll take care of it.